How's it going? Welcome to Potter's Pod, the official Stoke City podcast. If you've never seen this before, what we do is we get someone who's influential at the club, we sit them down and we chat to them for a good hour all about their life and their career. On this episode, it's part 2 of our chat with the former Stoke City captain, Ryan Shawcross. If you've missed part 1, where have you been? It was mint. He was talking all about the European run for Stoke, the FA Cup semi-final, about the England performances as well. So if you haven't seen that, I'd probably watch that one before you watch this one, but it is very, very good. This is part 2 of our chat with Ryan Shawcross. We mentioned England a little bit earlier on. Can we talk about the 4-2? Sweden?
Yeah. I thought it was 3-2, but yeah, it is 4-2 actually. Yeah, difficult night. I didn't want to come on sub, first of all. No, I've been on sub about 4 times in my whole career, so I didn't want to come on sub. We were 2-1 when I came up, and within about a minute I've made a mistake for the first goal, so that makes it 2-2. And stupidly, Gerrard's come out, headed the ball in the air. Obviously, Zlatan's done his overhead kick, and instead of just watching it go into the net, stupid me tries to dive into the net, trying to save it. So it looks like it's my fault. But yeah, lose 4-2, and then the international career's over really quickly in 10 minutes.
When you look back at that team, do you want to play a little game?
Yeah.
Who was making their debut last night? That night there was 6. I'll give you 3.
Kulka.
Yeah. There's one.
Jenkinson.
Yeah.
Zaha. Sterling.
Yes, 17 years old he was.
I've seen myself. 5. Osmond.
I've got a former Man United, would have been Man United teammate.
Welbeck.
Cleverly.
Oh, clever, yeah.
England, it was Gerrard's 100th game as well.
Yeah.
Right. This is just my opinion, and I'm not in any way attributing this to you, but obviously living and working in Stoke-on-Trent for a long time, when we were involved, like, watching the club from the outside, and obviously you were doing really well to get that England call-up, I remember being really naffed off on your behalf, because it felt like, because you come from Stoke, and Stoke had always been like dismissed as this head it and kick it football team, the second that you played for England and it didn't go to plan, you were written off. Whereas if you were at Arsenal and that had happened to you, do you think you would have been treated the same way?
Maybe not, but again, you have one opportunity, you have to take it. Football's ruthless. I always say our young lads, when you get a chance, the opportunity to play in the first team or train the first team, you might only get one opportunity, so you've got to take it. I didn't take the opportunity, so if I played well I would have stayed in the squad and then maybe made more appearances. That's the ruthless sport we're in.
How good was Zlatan?
He was good that day, but I played him again 2 more times when he was at United and he didn't score, so yeah, great player, had a great career, and we just caught him on the wrong night. He
didn't, that overhead won the, was it Pushkats Award? That overhead?
I didn't look back too much at it.
No. Move on from it. Is that, you've said in the past that you think that was obviously the moment that ended your international career. Is that one of your big regrets, or not really?
It is and it isn't. I don't particularly count myself as a cap holder. I had 10 minutes. I think if you're going to be an international, you've got to play over 10 times and you class yourself as a real international player, so I don't particularly class myself as an international player.
Doing yourself down a little bit.
It is, but that's my mindset. I remember we moved house and I found my cap, I didn't even know it was. And I showed the kids and they didn't believe that I'd played for England, so it was quite nice to show them that.
You're going to be a really difficult person to impress.
Yeah, probably am. But yeah, my mindset then was, I think you've got to get 10 appearances to be a real true England player. And then to be a top one, you go to 30, then 50's a real good player.
So your kids didn't believe that you'd played?
Well, they did when I seen it. So it was nice to show them, and I've probably come better at showing them shirts and captain's armbands and awards that I've got now than I was previously.
Can I make a slight insight, and don't take this the wrong way? You seem very no-nonsense. Where does that come from?
It's probably your upbringing. I've always been the same. I say what I say, and sometimes people struggle with that sometimes because the truth hurts, but it's always served me well.
Is that from your mum, your dad?
Probably a bit, but it's your upbringing, and it's the area you come from. I grew up in a town in Wales when there's not much going on, so it's quite an honest town. And yeah, to make it as a footballer, you have to really know yourself, understand yourself, and be quite tough. So that's probably where it comes from.
Was it them who instilled this kind of no nonsense, let's kind of concentrate on what you want to do? If you want to be a footballer, that's great, but you've got to earn it. Yeah,
I know, because my mum and dad weren't particularly bothered about football. My dad hadn't got a clue. My mum wasn't too fussed. Obviously they want me to do it and be successful, but there wasn't any sort of pressure. It was just a case of, if you enjoy it, we'll take you, and it's up to you what you do with it. And I was desperate to do it, so I trained. That was my biggest attribute. I trained so hard that it made it impossible for me not to make, because whoever was in front of me I was going to try and beat.
When did your dad realise Ryan might be quite good at this?
He really didn't understand football. He loved motorbikes, so he didn't really have a clue. So maybe when he came to a stadium and sees thousands of people watching, he probably understood that it was a big thing, but he wasn't into football.
What about how your mum and dad treated you when you were growing up? How have you applied that to your own kids?
Yeah, I try to. You want to give them the best opportunity to do whatever they do. I never say no to anything. I always say, if you want to do something, go and do it. I don't try and give them the silver spoon. I try and make them earn it. My wife's a lot better parent than me. I could be a little bit tough at times, but ultimately, if they want to do something, they've got to go and do it. I'll help them to a certain extent, but I'm not going to be there babysitting the whole time. They've got to go out and do it themselves.
So is it, if Dad says no, we'll go and ask Mum?
Yeah, more than that, and she'll say yeah.
When, obviously, we get to the point, pretty much if we're going through chronologically, TP leaves in the not too distant future after all this. Where were you when you found out he was going?
I knew it was sort of coming, because I thought I'd have more arguments with him than before, and when that happens when the captain's having arguments with the manager over tactics and things, we probably weren't going a bit south. So two things were going to happen. I was going to leave, or TP was going to leave. That's what I felt for myself. It was a little bit of a surprise, but then as soon as Mark Hughes came in, it felt like the right fit. And straight away, I got on really well with Mark Hughes. Didn't particularly talk to him much, but that was exactly what I needed at that time. When
TP left, did he ring you or did you ring him?
I'm sure I will have rang him after. Obviously he's done a huge amount for my career. Still doing loads for me now. So I owe a lot to him. And where I was in my career when Mark Hughes came in was 100% down to TP. But it was just the right time for me to maybe try something different.
Can you give me some insight? Because obviously I've never been a professional footballer, as I've mentioned, and you've still not said it. You can still do it, Rob, but we'll let that go. When a manager leaves, what's it like when you ring them when they've just been sacked? Do you know what I mean? Who instigates that phone call?
It's never nice. Obviously, we've had one recently. It's just never nice to know that someone's getting sacked, and normally a staff gets sacked, and you build up a good relationship with them, especially Tony, because he had so many years there, same with Mark Hughes. But as a captain, I always reached out to the staff and the manager. Well, there's a couple I didn't, because I didn't particularly like, but we didn't talk about that. But the ones I did like, you reach out to them and then you stay in touch with them still now.
Because you're so no-nonsense, that was very diplomatic of me, wasn't it? When you, how can I put this? When you have disagreements with people, it can be a good and bad thing. When do you think your personality styles helped you? When do you think you've been honest with someone and they've gone, actually, he's being honest with me now, I can trust him a bit more?
It always helps with managers, because managers want honest feedback, so training's not very good.
Do they all the time?
Sometimes they don't, but I'd always, if they ask me the question, I'd always give an honest opinion. And the majority of the time, I'd never do it in a disrespectful way. I'd never call them out in front of players. If I had a problem with them, I'd always go to them. And I've never been someone to gossip, so if I've got a problem with, say, a Tony Pugh, so between me and him, that's it, I won't go and then tell everyone else. So a lot of times people wouldn't know what was rumbling underneath. But I always felt, for the best of the club, sometimes I had to say something. So say when we were going through bad times, more recently in the Championship, when we were really struggling and we just couldn't seem to get going, you'd have a lot more conversations with managers then, and Mark Hughes when you're finishing 3 nights in a row, because it's going well. So there's, obviously you have standards in that, but we're in a good place. When we're not in a good place, then a lot more conversations happen.
Do you think that's why you've been so trusted as a player, because of the fact that you don't go off gossiping and because you've always been so straight down the line?
I'd like to think so. A number of managers always kept me on as captain, which was always pleasing. It wasn't a be-all end-all if they changed it. sometimes it became a hindrance towards the end because you were getting blamed for something that you were trying so hard, the team just wasn't there. But you just wanted the best for the club, and because you'd been there when the club was successful, you just wanted to transfer it to that again. But you knew sometimes what we were doing at that time was wrong, so you had to then have the conversation.
When Mark Hughes came in, obviously the playing style changed quite considerably, and quite a few different players were coming in, and there's obviously some players that have gone down in Stoke City folklore. Who was the player when you first saw them in training where you thought, this person's got a bit?
We had loads of Arnautovic, Shaqiri, Afellay, Munyesa, Bojan, all these technical lads coming in. And because we had a really good core, Hoofy left quite quickly to Leicester.
He went on to do all right, didn't he?
Done really well, because I thought it was the end. I think
Yeah.
he thought it was the end, I thought it was the end, but he'd done amazingly to go on what he did.
Yeah.
But the core was really good. You still had me, Walt, Wheelo, Crouchy, and then Asmir, and then you just added all them brilliant Afellay, Bojan, all them round it, and we had a really good team. But because the core was so good, that's why the Arnautovic and Shaqiri's really worked.
Who was the person when you first saw him in the training? Was the one player when you went, when someone either did a touch or a finish, and you thought, hey, we're in here?
Shaq. Yeah, Shaq was unbelievable player. Probably didn't show enough on the pitch what he showed in training, because he was an unbelievable player.
In what way? Just like the skills that
He had everything. Pace, power, technique, skill. Just that top level stuff. That's why he went on to play for Liverpool.
What were you like with the new players? Were you always one of those people that went up and introduced yourself and put your arm around a player, where you just kind of get on with it, you know where I am?
No, you'd always try and welcome them, try and be good to them. But I always like to also let them settle and see what kind of person they are. So if they're a good person, they're good around the group, it's really easy to help someone. If you have an Arnie, he was a little bit of a difficult character. You understand he's a brilliant player, but I never particularly got on well with him. But you get past that because he's such a good player.
There's so many games that we could pick out. There's so many games we could talk about in depth. But there's one that I really want to focus on, which was the 6-1 against Liverpool. What do you remember about that day?
The season was done. I think we needed to draw or win to get 9th place, so we were desperate for that. And in just one half, it all came together. And it just very rarely happens where just so many shots from outside the box just went in the top corner. And then added at centre of it, Steven Gerrard's last game. All the focus from that comes on. It was just such a comfortable afternoon, and then just to get the 6, and then even Gerrard to score is quite nice because it just adds a bit to the story. Yeah, it's one of them great days.
Do you remember, when you look back at that day in particular, do you think about that as one of the highlights of your time in that second spell with Mark Hughes? Or?
Yeah, it's very rare that I'd ever enjoy a game. It's quite, football's, especially if to players, it's quite a stressful game. So even if you're 1-0, they might score, and if you're back in it, if you're 2-0 again, even when you get to 3, you think if they get 1, you might. So you're always as a defender, you're stressed, trying to organise, trying to get everyone in place. Because if you take your foot off it for 1 second in the Premier League, they'll score. So it's really stressful. But at 6, you can sort of go, this is really good. And you sort of look at the fans. It was sunny. It was Gerrard's last game, and we could have probably scored more. So yeah, one of the rare days when you really enjoy the performance. When
you're flying and everything's going well and night finishes and all that kind of stuff, did you ever come close to leaving?
No, not when we were doing well. There was always offers in and around, but I never really looked past what we were doing. I always felt we were in a good place. The club always looked after me properly with my contracts, so there's never any sort of debate over that. I just felt at home. I was playing well. I live locally, so it'd have to take something amazing for me to go and move. And the big thing was I was starting. So a Liverpool might come in, but they're not offering you the number 1 centre-half spot. They're saying you'll be in the squad. So why would you ever want to change what you've got here?
Do you ever think about what would happen if you'd gone to one of those big clubs? Because you were linked with the biggest clubs, weren't you? I remember Man United was obviously a big link at the time.
No, I never. I always wanted to stay. It never really came to my mind. The only time I probably had a real chance to leave was when we got relegated. But the biggest thing for me was I'd be gutted if I was watching us winning week after week and I was at another club. So I made the decision really on what to stay, what just to come straight back up. How wrong was I like? But I just didn't want to be playing at another club, maybe still the Premier League, but watching us win week in, week out, and then come straight back up, and I wasn't part of it. So the fear of missing out stopped me ever moving.
You don't strike me as a what-if character.
No, I'm not, but that one, I just didn't want to miss out. I knew, I had a feeling that if I'd gone away and we were successful, I'd look back and regret it.
There's a couple more things I want to talk about. Your time in Miami, and then I want to talk about the future. The thing I want to talk about first is the injuries, because obviously injuries towards the end of your career definitely didn't help. What were you like to be around when those happened?
From a physio point, I was really good because I just wanted to get back as quick as I can. So I pushed the boundaries of injuries and everything to get back as quick as I can. And I wasn't a moper when I was injured. I just wanted to get back as quick as I can, so I focused fully on that. So I build things at my house to help me recover. Stupid things like cold plunge pools and all sorts.
When you say you build them?
Well, obviously, pay someone to build it, but it's an expense that you understood that helped me have a prolonged career. And it's just really weird. From 19 to 20, I think it was 30, I played something like 450 games. After 30, I played about 20 games. So my drop-off is massive. But I just think I played through too many injuries in that time that just caught me. And I think you always have a shelf life as a player, and towards the end, I just couldn't catch a break. It was injury after injury after injury. And that probably got me down towards the end, because I was still a good player, but I just couldn't get fit.
I just had this image then of you like with a spirit level, trying to put together a hot tub. You're not that kind of person.
Right.
No.
Definitely not.
What would you be like at home when you get past 30 and you're getting those injuries and you've got your family around you?
Your kids are growing up, so they have more focus away from dad being injured, so they're not as bothered. But yeah, I was just desperate to get fit, and your wife wants you to be fit because she wants you to be happy, and your kids do.
And she wants you out of the house.
Yeah, she wants the kids to come watch you play. But yeah, I didn't like it. I just couldn't catch a break. It was just calf. I'd be out of a long-term injury, and then it'd be a calf strain, and the medical staff were brilliant. But I pushed myself the same at 25, and I did that at 31, 32, and my body just couldn't cope. So looking back in hindsight, which you should never do, I should have took longer with injuries, and then I might have had a long career. But my mindset was the same as 25, which gave me all them games. So why should I change? But I should have.
When did you first hear about Miami?
It was coming to the end here. I was desperate to stay, and I would have stayed if something was on the table. But it was made pretty clear that at that time they didn't want me not around the place, but there wasn't anything there. So when that happens, it was that whether I retire. But then the offer came up, and it just felt right. And speaking to Phil Neville was brilliant. It was just perfect. 2 years out there, and then I'd retire. But it didn't work out. So
the phone rings. Is it your agent who's saying there's an opportunity for you to go to America? When you ring Kathy and say, "Do you fancy Miami?" Is it a squeal? Is it a yes, or is it like let's see what it's like for the kid?
No, she wasn't keen. She really didn't enjoy going. She was quite a homebird going all the initial first 2 months, but after 2 months she loved it, made friends. And funny enough, when we were coming back, and even now, I think she'd probably go back now. She absolutely loved it and would probably rather live there than here. And I loved everything about it, the culture, the sunshine, the heat, the whole vibe of Florida, the things you can do in Florida. There's so many different things around Florida you can do without actually flying somewhere. So loved everything about it. It's just a shame. I probably should have gone out a couple of years earlier and been a better footballer, because by the time I was out there, I was shot to pieces and my back just gave up.
Disneyland's not got a patch on Alton Towers, though, has it?
I'm a big fan of Disneyland when I was over there, to be fair.
Try and tell me with Alton Towers here, Ryan. I'm throwing you all these bones and you're not helping yourself sometimes. He's still best mates with David Beckham?
To be fair to him, he's a great guy.
Is he right?
I won't say I'm best mates, but yeah, he was great for the club, and he couldn't do more to help you settle and just welcome you into the Miami club. And he was always in and around it, and you realise what a superstar is when he's about, because everyone wants him, everyone wants a picture of him, and he's just a normal guy.
Any nights out with him? I know you're not a person who goes out, you've made that clear, but did you go any nights out?
No, I didn't, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm not in that circle of friends of his.
Maybe still time.
No, maybe.
There's still time. When you took the decision to retire, you don't strike me as one of these people that is going to look back at the career and go, I wish I was still playing, etc. You seem like one of these people that's completely focused on the here and now and the future. So you don't strike me as the kind of person that would go on Gillette Soccer Saturday if we can say that on the podcast and go, well, you should be doing this. Do you know what I mean? You feel like you are, I'm looking forwards, not looking back at things.
I was always going to go into coaching. I started my coaching badges when I was 24, 25, so that was always what I was doing. I'm a pro licence by 31, so I was set to go. Retirement was taken out of my hands, so in America, completely different. You have end of season meetings with the chairman, the manager, and they, although you've got another year for a contract, they say whether they want you in the squad next year. And they were going to put, I can't remember what it was, but it was sort of like, you're injured, you're not going to be involved at all. So as soon as that was said, I knew that was time. And then, to be fair to them, they offered me a coaching role. So I did 8 months coaching out there, which was brilliant. So I got my first taste of it, helping out the second team. Came back here, and I decided to have a bit of time off. So it was 7-8 months and I went around watching loads of League 2, League 1 games, going to see different managers, different coaches. And then that following summer, then came back into Stoke.
When you were a footballer and when you were at the peak of your powers, it's obviously amazing to see yourself on Match of the Day and all this kind of stuff. But I always wondered what it'd be like to see like a load of people walking down the street or walking to the Bet365 with a like Shawcross on the back. What's that like when you see? And do you remember the first time you saw someone with your name on the back of their shirt?
I think it shows you're a half decent player, so it's quite nice. You don't see the rubbish players in the squad with kids with the name on that, so I always took it as a compliment. But it's part of the Premier League thing, especially the higher up you go, the more shirts will have your names on. So there'll be a lot more Fullers than Shawcrosses, a lot more Lawrences than Shawcrosses because of the type of player they were. But it is nice, and it's nice just to have that sort of reassurance that you're doing all right. It's sort of test of time. I always had quite a number of shirts in and around the club, so it was always good.
I always like to think that if I saw someone, you don't necessarily want my surname on the back of any shirt, but if you saw someone, I think it'd be like jumping out of the car, do you want me to sign it for you? No, nothing like that. You don't strike me as that kind of person.
No, it's not. And to be fair to the Stoke community and Stoke people, they always say hello to you, because a lot of times now when we're trying to stay fit as coaches, we have a jog around the training ground, and the amount of people that beat their own away here, still now, and you're not a player, it's amazing. So that community's always been there, always will be, and you see players that go away and come back or just pop back for a game and they're still loved by the fans.
Do you see yourself as a Stokie?
Yeah, probably now I do. I've been here this long, back at the club, and it feels like home. I always feel like the safest in and around here, so yeah, probably is home.
I understand your son's doing quite well?
Yeah, the younger one, he's a defender, he's not bad to be fair, and he's in the 11s, so yeah, he's got half a chance.
Can do all right?
Hopefully, you never know at that age, but he's got the right attitude, some really good qualities, so we'll see.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that your parents are probably more interested in them playing football than they were you. Is that fair?
That's probably fair enough.
That's what grandparents do. It's just what grandparents do. Finally then, the future. Stay here for as long as you can, see what you can do, become a coach, become a manager.
You never know. If you would have told me at the start of the season that I'd have coached the first team for a game, I would have been surprised. So I've had that opportunity, and since Walter's come back to the club, I think there's definitely an upward trajectory. And I keep telling people it's going to take time. It's going to take not months but years. We're trying to turn that thing where you try and make it more successful. So that does not happen overnight. But you've got to get all the foundations set in place before you can then go, right, let's go in the Premier League. And I feel like him and the owner are doing that. I've just got a new manager, so you're wishing him all the best and hope he can have quick results. But me knowing football, it never is quick results. So you just try to make sure that foundation's right to then give the manager the best chance to go and be successful. But me personally, got a great role in the 21s where I'm learning on the job, get loads of exposure. Listen, I'd love us to win small games, but I know where the squad's at and what league we're in. That can be difficult at times, but for my development and where I'm at as a coach, it's at the moment we're in the right place and it's perfect. In a year's time that might be different, but at the moment for the next year to 18 months I see myself developing the 21s and trying to get as many young players in the first team as I can. Is
there anyone from the current crop of players that you think could have done well in like prime Stoke City, like mid-2010s?
The good player's a good player, so a Sol Salibi I think he's going to go on and be a real good player, so he'll fit into any team in any generation because he's a good player. I think Dixon's got a right chance. Freddie Anderson's a really good player. there's a good number of players there, and I think at times you look past how well the academy's done to get these 5 or 6 in the first team. Dixon and Solo in England under-18s at the moment, and they don't take bad players. Simpkin captain the 20s. So although at times you look at the tables, which you never should do in the under-18s and 21s, and we're not performing as well as we are, more than likely that's because all our best players are either out on loan or with the first team, which fundamentally my main job is get under-18s through my 21s into the first team. So the quicker I do that, the better I'm doing my job.
So that was part 2 of our special chat with Ryan Shawcross, the former Stoke City captain. As always, do me a massive favour, click on subscribe, and you will know the instant the latest Potters Pod comes out. We'll see you soon.
Potters Pod, the official Stoke City podcast.